Hello everyone, today I want to thank you for having surpassed in the last couple of days 1 million views in total from the beginning of Schwerpunkt, so not 1 million views overnight, which we all hope, I guess, to hit here one day. It's still a significant milestone, right? It means I made lots of videos admittedly, so this would account for more than 500 views for each one on average. I think my videos have always been, let's say, quoted slightly higher than the YouTube average. What really seems to, though, is that most of the people, I see it mostly from the new subscribers, that I also welcome, by the way, because I stopped really making channel updates for a while, but I will probably resume these to explain a bit better what this is about, giving a direction. That very few people are aware, of course, of the existence of smaller channels like mine in the first place, and this is naturally due still to the fact that this content is not so engaging like others. This is kind of obvious. I mean, while it is true that sometimes video, I think the YouTube algorithm is quite fair, all in all, but that of course there are videos that you wonder why they so. You should ask the people at that point if you watch them. Why are they so entertaining by some degree or not, right? YouTube is a pretty strange thing, right? Part of the reason why I started this was genuine curiosity for seeing how the thing worked, because I literally had no idea how the mechanism really was. And I must say that in spite of this underperformance to some degree, I think considering the just looking at the stats of how many videos are uploaded every day and so on, this is actually a good result. That of course the channel has been growing, right? And if especially the last couple of years have been a bit of a bumpy road, it was my fault because of, what I started, this great re-upload of the older videos. There are just 300 left or something, but also realized that now every time I make a new video, this basically is heavier in weight. Specifically, it gets more views. So of course the old ones, this is part of the problem, remain a bit behind, even of the re-uploads that when I began to re-upload all at once, of course, I lost that specific weight in terms of the views and the likes, the comments, etc. that they had matured. But as I was saying, I think that all in all, YouTube's algorithm is fair, right? I get actually a higher watch length, which is kind of obvious given the length of my average video, but also a higher level of income compared to the average YouTube like ads revenue, right? So this has always struck me because the obvious is here that of course I do figure even in the lists as way above say the mid, given that again there is really a lot of stuff and this would attract unavoidably views, watch length especially, and so on. So my thanks go, of course, to all of you. I never rewatch my videos. I think I would never be able to, right? I understand also why, generally speaking, they're not so famous in the first place. The format has remained the old one. I somewhat improved my speech. Also, the image crisis has been somehow surpassed, and I feel really well with that because finally have completely, I don't have any copyright issue. I never had one actually, but I see many channels essentially picking entire pictures, making them pass like in a few seconds with some zoom back and forth effect to say, okay, this is fair use. But that's such a gray area that I think it's better to be overly cautious than risking something on the longer run, especially with such a large amount of videos. So we'll talk a bit about what I think YouTube is going through and what will go like, because the the idea is that there is a big change, right? When I started, it was relatively easy to make videos and getting some view, right? Even with this format. Then over the years, there's been apparently a boom of say visual content, of being contacted by some documentary makers, some of the channels with millions of subscribers now, etc., that wanted me to script stuff, and I always refused because that wouldn't be my job. I'm a path maker on my own and a lone wolf just in many ways in my life, so I could never have done something like that. And this is why I take pride of this amount of views and watch length, because it is like 1 million is symbolic. I think the watch length is the thing that really matters. Telling the truth, is something like in total like almost 200,000 hours, right? Of which makes you think, really thinking all the time. People have listened to this stuff, and even just accidentally. But I saw also, again, through the engagement rate, that there is some consistent, I see it every day, some consistent following. And without, this is the point of YouTube that I can tell you as a so-called creator. Oh my God, what a title. Let's say it stands out just together with all the rest, is that the channel is very much more so than what you think, not what the creator does, but how much people watch it, right? I often said in the past that I would be making videos even if I got just one view, so that could change something, because I truly believe that history has that capacity of of challenging, of provoking, of stimulating, and I see it with myself, with here, out of here, for what I do for a living, but also for how much I had to learn myself. And this is, in fact, I think the greatest amount of wealth that I've gotten from here. That is probably the knowledge, the fact that I had to learn myself the stuff that I had to talk about with you. So this means a lot. I mean, the fact that subscribers increase, that they keep coming. I will talk about the stats if you're interested. On the long, there is uneven growth, right? This doesn't seem to be going down at all, right? And this is true for all Schwerpunkts time, right? Just per se. Of course, a couple of years ago I began to re-upload the videos, so there's been, of course, a fall, but this was obvious. But ever since, also, there's been a consistent growth, and actually we have reached the point, reached and surpassed the point we were 2 years ago. So currently Schwerpunkt is more watched and for a longer time than ever it has. The question is understanding where to bring this project, because I count on continuing in it. I know that things in life at some point take over. There are issues, mostly of time, because I don't see really the reason to quit, even on the longer term, right? I'm not a quitter, generally speaking, to the point of dumb stubbornness in my life. Like, once I'm on a track, I think Clausewitzianly you have to follow it, right? It's useless to try to go back and try to, let's say, to change direction, starting everything once again. This is evidently, with 8,400 subscribers, still, say, a decent base. And this is especially the beauty of YouTube, that it makes it always easier, the larger, in fact, it is, to expand further, right? I've noticed it also on Twitter, where people start, cumulating to follow my account, even though it's just a secondary thing, etc. But the power, of course, of sharing, that I say anecdotally at every video ending, is actually much greater than you think, right? It's not that you have necessarily to share the videos, because I ask for it, but it's not a huge deal if you like it's a huge deal if you don't, meaning that in potential, right, this channel could skyrocket overnight if just, even just the people that follow it regularly shared it somewhere. But sometimes it's also enough just to talk about it with someone, right? If you go on like wherever, the best would be YouTube itself, because of course it's within the same system, so with comments, with saying, engaging with other channels, saying, have you watched that video Schwerpunkt made about this? Because that's also the main difference that I see, and the thing that I can't complain against, but that sometimes does seem odd, that I'm aware to be making, and I say it without modesty, better historical content than most YouTubers, for the simple reason that it's not a difficult thing to do in the first place, right? YouTube is not really a place where you can learn. Well, even if you have academic lectures uploaded, whatever, I don't make videos sounding like, oh my god, this is an academic lecture, right? You just know that, however, I work in that field and exactly at that level, and so I do believe that, at least comparatively for what I see, also rarely, because I don't have the time to watch YouTube channels, never really had it, but a couple of channels that at least I used to in the past and that I still upload. Of course, people grow up, right? I grew up and old, right, in these years, but of course that content doesn't satisfy me anymore, right? What happened is that in the last, let's put it, 10 years or so, there are this few, there are a couple of tens, basically, of history channels that began to dominate, right, either for arms and armor or general history, like ancient, medieval, mostly military history, and so on, and they're often like that. That's more or less what I put myself in relation to, because there was a single guy, right? Some are teamwork, like some of the largest channels, in fact, that make sort of cartoon stuff, like animations, etc. But for the rest, there are just these big figures. I will not make names, but I also see through the analytics what channels you watch, right? Just know that YouTube actually offers you a dramatic amount of information as a creator, and these people rose to the top because they were right in time, like in the moment in which that content was needed, because they objectively had a competence of some sort, but the content has always remained generalistic. So they have, say, I don't know, several hundred thousands of subscribers. People got accustomed to them. They acquired familiarity with them and so on. So they just, it's their trusty kind of reference, right? More than actually saying, look, there is better stuff out there. And these guys at some point make a video every couple of days, 15 minutes, saying not because there is something bad about them, but it's just that they're incredibly, just for the time they take, incredibly superficial stuff, right? Unless they talk about something extremely specific that pertains to their field of knowledge, etc. If there are HEMAs, things like that, say, what are the characteristics of this sword or whatever? In that case, yes, if you make the entire channel about it, of course you wanna. There is a level of depth, but say most of I also extended it to the other videos. Most of the most watched channels are evidently lacking basic, and I say it again with a doctorate in medieval history and specialized medieval warfare specifically, they don't get even the basics right, and so, but people click on them because, of course, they're more entertaining, they're shorter, there are pictures of some kind, or at least some sort of animations, and everything is pumped in the sense of, look at how cool this stuff is, right? I will not tell you anything about that. We'll put together some sort of, high school level of attempt of historical explanation, and everybody, oh wow, this guy, and these guys, because mostly it's a team, right? It does this, made that. Of course, there is a lot of varying quality. I'm not saying that they're all bad at all, right? Some content is really right, but it would be very fascinating to criticize. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I criticized very few times, telling the truth, but still, some of these content because, especially when you want to cover big topics in such a short time, and generally speaking, your background is not the right one, or even maybe you read somebody's article or you consult some kind of expert, but who is this expert? There's a lot lost in translation, let's say, in the passage, in the this almost cannibalic way of compressing, marketing, packing this information for the sake of entertainment and not for actually providing with any historical teaching. Right, because the thing is the following, and let's be honest about that. And this is a problem also for not just for the single channels, but for YouTube potentially, because if there was here a much more systematic way of teaching actual academic level content, I would think there would be the ways to profit from it in a big sense, right? You do find things. Oh, look, there is the lecture from the Yale professor, whatever. But maybe it's just a 1 hour introduction of all what happened from, say, the end of the Western Roman Empire to Charlemagne, and in 1 hour you can't even give a clear idea of the essentials, and you rarely find anything more in depth than that, right? And I'm talking sometimes even about bigger topics, right? For example, a couple of years ago, the migration era, just me and I think Schola Gladiatoria even made a video that was titled with something like migration era / period, whatever. Today you have more, but when you actually even look at those videos with hundreds of those channels with hundreds of videos, etc., you often realize that the topics are chosen just for what may attract the viewers, and not actually for the sake of completion or giving like a comprehensive, objective, diachronic and comparative understanding of those very events. Everything is sensationalized, and it's as a consequence presented in a distorted way, given the actual the absolute and the relative importance that the issue really has, right? Just to make an example, if you make a filter and you look at all the videos that are posted in a day on YouTube about history of the Middle Ages, like half of them are something like the means of torture in the Middle Ages. Like they don't even try, right? There are some, they think that the audience is stupid and they want just to, and ignorant. And let's be honest, right? I think here to have collected actually a much better audience than the average. And I make you this compliment, but in general, of course, what those videos are designed for are obviously for attracting the dumb, and it may even be a smart move because there are, in fact, lots of them. But I also don't see here that those videos are very clicked. Let's say just per se, but say the bigger channel talks about medieval history. It makes, of all the possible topics in medieval history, that is not a serious channel for obvious reasons, right? I could make one myself. Of course, I will never do it, I think, because I think that there are much more impressive things in just normal political, military, and social history without making a meme or a caricature of the Middle Ages, as always, unfortunately, to be amazed of than this stuff. So it's become, of course, a crazy race for many reasons. Millennials like us, of course, at some point thought to be so great and spoiled and backed up enough, right, to start making YouTube videos rather than pursuing, honest careers. That's where I publish, I write, whatever. But let's say things are objectively difficult, right? It's not like a myth, but there is no doubt either that we have been, say, the entire world is relaxing to a point is very dangerous, right? Maybe this is the time we're going to be surpassed by time, because how long is YouTube gonna last, right? I hope a long time. This is a type of site that is not simply going to pass because another one rises to some point. Because in business in general, yes, there could be a wave of movement from a platform to another, but without digressing on especially the revenue, which is a very fascinating thing, that here you can stop making videos, but you still get the revenue from them and all this stuff. I will not stop, and I will explain you later why again, but I already reassured you in that sense. But you may never know. Like, I'm making all these videos that are all saved, so nobody has to worry that they're gonna be lost, and you have to be worried whether I leave long enough or not, right? And that's the only thing at that point, because otherwise I still want to do this in a form or another. But you may never know what's going to happen. So it's all about looking at the moral dimension of this production in detail, right? YouTube has, in my opinion, going down. Like, this is the phase of great stagnating, paradoxically, expansion, right? That still sees YouTube keeping to grow and say articulating other functions, whatever. But you also realize that the beginning, like, say that you remember the thing broadcasting yourself. I've never been a fan of that, because I think it's, I'm not an exhibitionistic person, and at least I hate people who are considerably. But that was the point, right? And it's the point behind channels like Schwerpunkt and others and other figures that have been a point of reference for you, etc. That it was about us. I mean, it was the fact that it's our person that is telling you the stories, right? Because otherwise, what would be the point, right? What would be the point to see a condensed, scripted cartoon kind of video? Like, you can watch 20 of them and then what, right? Unless you're very young and attracted to these things, because you admittedly do not know much about them. But say, as I was saying before, you cannot build a military historical competence, for example, from them, right? You also can't quite rely on the aforementioned lazy type of video making, like, oh, look, there is, I don't know, this symbol on this sword. What the hell is that? As if it was an actual. I mean, there are interesting symbols of swords sometimes, but some of them are just obviously a normal thing. In many ways, and people are watching, oh my god, this strange thing, but a connoisseur, whatever. I can assure you that, and I try to do it in my videos, of course, that history is a much more powerfully complex and, in this sense, difficult thing to learn than what, of course, these sources would like to make you believe, right? If you keep your standards low, but still pretend that you're mastering those standards, because you induce by, of course, fooling people who have normally a low understanding of history in the first place. Those are the standards, like the top ones. Of course, it's easy to trick people into contributing to the heinous, terrifying, I think it's becoming a mental disorder, together with a sort of cult of religion, of the, what I call, like, the religion of the lesser people. Like, first of all, paranoia, right? The fact that basically you cannot go out there finding out stuff or engaging in a direct, confident, assertive, and informative and competent way, because of course we're destroying all that resembles anything of that. But you have this sort of messianic figures that disclose to you something from, above the clouds that you cannot see, and that you're under, and that you say, oh my god, I feel so blessed that there is this person. Again, this is something it can, say, with a certain standard of teaching, well, for, like, maybe a person up to their mid-20s, right? But it doesn't work, if you really want to learn serious things, what you should be knowing at that age to to be at least competing with actual, with people with actual expertise that is really needed, right? So it's difficult, right? There are not many ways to go around the fact that, yes, I think that most YouTube videos out there are concerning history are terrible, right? And that even those who basically get as the most qualified, this is the channel of military history, that very often it's condensed mash of some scientific evidence, but explained by a person that doesn't actually get the implication of, plus cliches and really jokes that you don't really need to hear, and just a general attitude that is meant at the end of the day to reinforce the same prejudices that the audience has, right? I think that this is particularly important. Of course, I want to be antipathetic when I make a video. I want the person to say, well, who's this guy? Why is talking like this? He's saying things that I've never heard of, and they're diametrically opposite to the ones they actually know. So I hate him. I don't want to hear him. But at a certain point, like if, as I try to do, you give this constant kind of evidence, this constant attention to certain aspect, you actually make lots of videos about the same topic from different perspectives and so on. The average, and I think this is what the nucleus of this channel is really about in terms of followers, etc., that the average viewer is going to get it, right, and sticking around. The Latin said repetita juvant, which means, repeating the repeated stuff really helps to implicitly to understand at the end of the day. And that's a bit what I've been doing here. Admittedly, there are some limits that I face with every day that I usually never voice, because aside from the possible time issues because it's really funny making these videos, I don't deny that, right? It becomes addictive. It's not because of the views or the income, whatever. That's the least important thing. In a sense, it's fascinating to see how many people you can reach, and so of course it's pleasant to see when you have a following and you hope at least that what you say is gotten, because as I was saying, most of the things I say are normally different, at least from the general assumptions, even among, and I say it within the same academia, right? And not much because I divert from topics that are believed to be another thing, but because I actually say things that normally are either not studied anymore generationally, or they're, in this sense, have not been put to the test of the most contemporary research acquisitions. So you can be sure that what I do here is pretty original in its own regard. Obviously, I draw from lots of sources. As you know, I have been collecting here. I think I reached more than 14,000 books that I can access regularly. I have other thousands here and in another place as physical ones, but this 14,000 ones alone are about history, military history, and so all digitalized. I can easily get lots of information, putting together very original stuff and criticizing, so that it becomes really a completely different thing compared to just the original source, but to say the perspective and the where I come from with that, right, and for what purpose, which of course I avow that I've never met in my own life, right? So certain ways of interpreting tradition or etc. are truly original in the sense that I've never seen them, right? I got there by myself, right, and I don't feel I can be boxed like within a category or whatever. I also hardly ever meet any criticism, which is also fascinating. A problem, I must say, of course, is sometimes that I'm not sure how much what I say is actually understood, right? This is the greatest challenge. In part, it's the way I speak that may be rambly with sidebars, and as you understand, it's all unscripted. because I just come up with that stuff at the moment. But again, it's something that you can't be assured you will not find on another channel, and that fits an entire architecture, let's say. That is to say, every video I make is implicitly connected to the others, right? Just because the content is, as you understand here, I often reference to videos I already made for the sake, as if it was a sort of bibliography, right, of videography. But because it actually is, right, the way I deal with history now is within a specifically comprehensive view and, say, method of analysis and explanation and so on. And of course, I try to also highlight those aspects that I think are more important overall, like especially they are matters of perspective. I hate how the term is used, especially now as a sort of, it became, in a couple of years, like a normal thing to do, like teaching military history, saying, let's make the history of this war, but the perspective of this war, as if, betraying the entire laws of reciprocity of the Clausewitzian theory, because people, again, are getting ever more paranoid and fixated only on the very few things that they think, at least they know. So if you make a video that is, let's look at this war from the perspective of this country, whatever, people, etc., the person that is already within that kind of superstitious and cultural misery will flock to those things. It says, oh, this thing is for me, because I can't avoid to know all the rest to understand reality, and this is instead my only mean of self, accomplishment through somebody out there that makes a video just for my team, the one that waves my flag that I'm so keen of, and that of course you will still not get anything about, because it's really very difficult just with that background in the first place, aside from hoping to get any of that from YouTube, right? But there are other difficulties in the sense that I tend to cover, as you know, I mostly make medieval and ancient, in part also early modern, and I'm satisfied about the latter to a certain degree at least. But it's just per se a big timeline, right? I concentrate mostly on Europe because, like, for obvious reasons, I would say. But of course, I have this sort of encyclopedistic aim that I remember ever since I was a child, having, like, wanting to really cover and to know and knowledge every single damn place, like Kant that studied, every single small principality, the Holy Roman Empire, throughout all its history and so on. Of course, I do not do that to that level of detail, unfortunately, but that is exactly what I would like to do. And it feels, even after almost 1800, I don't remember how many videos I made, I stopped counting them, but say almost 1800 videos, that even this number is too dispersive. That is to say, I made 1800 videos, but about sometimes even very specific things, but there are still huge gaps within all there are some major figures that I never discussed, there are some major topics that I never addressed, and so all of it, I understand, derives from the fact that I also sclerotize to a perspective that is making the video every day, and so thinking what I could do, but still having to make this thing go, right? Many people told me, like, well, not many, but just friendly advice, like, but even if you don't make a video every day, or maybe if you concentrate more quality or editing or information in one video, people will watch it anyway. I understand that, but for the same reason that I still keep this format going on, I have a very specific idea in mind of what this content should be, because you may dislike the way I present the stuff, understandably, but it's still the only way for me to tell everything I need in that video for you to, at least, if you stick to it till the end, to understand the whole thing to a level that a shorter video wouldn't make, right? You see how much I actually can. Of course, it's annoying. I understand that, jumping from a topic to another, whatever, but it's as if I were just going through the thing that I have in mind. You do not know that because, the video goes on. You don't know where it leads. But I do follow that path, and this has been the case since the very beginning of the channel. So the same videos themselves, taken singularly, may be like, okay, this is just an isolated topic, but it ain't, especially at this point, right? So I would always like to do more, better. I just gave myself this timing, which I'm okay with. I do else. You would be surprised to know that I do else in my life as well. So that is actually even more important than this, of course. And the general outcome seems satisfactory, at least to me, right? Because it's again, if I had to explain why I do this overall, of course I could get it down to some ideals, if any, or some principles, if you prefer, some values. But what lays between these and me so what you see mostly in the videos overall is huge. It's up to this point 1,800 videos that to me are just too few, right? I feel honestly as if I had neither started to begin to say what I wanted to say. Reason for which, by the way, I probably will disappoint you in the end, but it would still be quite useful for me to know what kind of topics you're interested in, right? Rather than at least, certain suggestions about the channel, etc. Those are welcome as well, but I'm interested because you're not very vocal, right? Once a guy told me, but you say everything, so we don't have anything to add. I don't think so. But at least a sense of what kind of content you would like to systematically see, right? This is not, say, satisfying. This requests are fine as well. I'm probably going to disappoint you anyway, because sometimes they're really peculiar, and it's not that I couldn't find the actual knowledge or that I don't know, but it's like I can't make a video for every question that I'm posed, right? So I literally don't have the time anymore at this point for the amount of the questions. But in general, right, nobody comes up by saying, you see, I would like to have, not to know about this very specific topic, like the participation of these guys from this principality, I don't know, in the West India Company, like at this point in history. Well, because that, you understand, is interesting, but is very peculiar, just per se. So it fits just like a tiny element of the wall. What I'm interested in is knowing what is that you would like to see on a more consistent basis. To the degree of very, very simple, like broader branches of the topics that I normally address. For example, I don't know, medieval warfare, medieval history, like a difference between, say, warfare from history, let's say, in a more, from a military to a more political, social fashion. The same, Roman warfare, Roman history, migration era, early modern warfare, or like a specific aspect, at least of, I don't know, even one single country's development in this phase of history. These are important things to me because they allow me to attract people who have a systemic interest, and that therefore can help also they can contribute to the channel also in a tiny hit, say, influencing it in ever more strengthening perspective, so that they can call other people, they can see that I'm responsive to, as I said before, I don't make just videos on request per se. Up to this point I made mostly question and answer videos, which are fine. Even the simplest questions that may seem dumb or whatever, they are actually okay, because if that is also the level sometimes, there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, I have much greater admiration for a person who tells me, who asks me something that makes me understand he or she doesn't know much, even just about basic manualistic history, and somebody who wants to show off pretending to know something that they don't, and making kilometric kind of comments. Happens very rarely, but it does. By the way, about topics they already extensively discussed elsewhere. Right, recently I started to, you've seen it, to fix certain top comments of mine with a sort of bibliographical, videographical list of all the pertinent, the related videos to the topic discussed in that one, because I realized that unfortunately YouTube fuels the laziness in this regard. People engage just with the new content, but like if you watch me, also the new subscribers every day, admittedly you may not have the time to follow or to watch everything I've done, but at least knowing, and I realize that some of you doesn't get this, that there is so much that I've done that is very pertinent to the very things you would like to know, and that it just can be reached through the search function on the channel without too many problems. Is important for you, right? Of course, I'm not going to. It's easy for me as well to simply answer with a link of a playlist of mine or of a specific video that covers that topic. But at that point, why asking as well? I mean, I do it because the comment is going to hopefully remain, so other people can click on it, click on the link and whatever. But it's obvious. It's as if, I went to a professor at university. Asking him or her questions about something that they have already published and that it's even free to access, and still making them, in that case, losing their time, right? For something that, even criticizing somebody for saying you do not know this or not know that, when you've actually maybe been talking for hours and hours on end in tens of videos. That's pretty bizarre sometimes. And YouTube, again, it spreads this bad habit of getting the preview, the new video, whatever. But again, even if I made a video a couple of years ago, it's still, viable. And also, most of you actually access my content from some few, because this is how it works, algorithmic, I call them, videos that YouTube simply keeps on suggesting over and over again, for reasons, by the way, that you would be shocked to know that are actually throttled on the, well, maybe not so if you understand the reason, but on the base of how much, but this is interesting. Of course, the ads pay for a given topic. Now, I have somewhere here on analytics the info, but to make the long story short, like if I make a video about the migration era, because of the current tribalism and sense of anti-civilization that we have today, again, flattering the fourth estaters, of course, lack of any knowledge of the actual migration era from a historical point of view, is expected to get more views than, say, if I make a video about, 16th century, whatever, I don't know, like something even just about the late Middle Ages, for example, much more interesting, insightful, civilizationally relevant thing. More complex one to understand, admittedly, but still, that most people wouldn't be do not know that they would be interested to learn, right? And this is the reason why most of you comes here, shocking reveal from videos like, again, the Alans, the Franks, the Sarmatians, the Avars, the Bulgars, the Magyars, the Slavs. It's always the same. Right, it never changes. I am sure that if I make videos about those topics, I could even make many more views. But as you understand, I wouldn't feel to have a moral integrity if I simply, fed you with that stuff, and I skipped all the rest. Right, I would give you a completely distorted understanding of history. It doesn't matter how well, perhaps I would be able to explain certain things. This is up to you to decide. or really not, telling the truth, because I at least have earned the right to determine whether a person can be right or wrong about that, because otherwise we wouldn't have scholars and university professors and so on. But let's say there is also a matter of entertainment. It's just a matter of I'm in need of that information, and I want to know. If I stuck just to those topics, you wouldn't know anything about lots of much more important ones. So actually, what I'm really trying to do here is interspersing different type of topics, so to fool a bit that thing, so to bring that active dimension of yours to click on the next video thinking that is like maybe the clickbait one, which I don't make clickbaits, as you know. I'm actually even too concise about the stuff I'm actually discussing in every single video, but that is aiming to say, look, this is a new stuff, I don't know what it is, but I'll give it a try. And very often that's something that I see on YouTube does not exist, right? There are specific topics that on YouTube are I am the only person to discuss, and even quite important ones, telling you the truth. So that's at least a way to assess even the failure of YouTube, in my opinion, because it's always this mentality of cashing fast, immediately, and not being able to invest in whatever. Again, there are risks involved. There is definitely a matter of if you can earn a lot today, and if you have the capacity of doing it, just do it. I mean, better for you in that regard. But you have to think also about the future, that it has an uncertainty, but could also, like if you know how to aim, you have some sort of divinatory capacity, your traditional vision could arrive to look at. And regarding that, I'm in fact rather pessimistic about the same future of YouTube, because YouTube seems even too serious, right? Even just given the abysmal level of that we just exposed of historical average content that is posted here under that name, YouTube starts being perceived by people who are now being brought up with TikTok style of videos, for which you see here, even on YouTube, there are the shorts, this terrifying thing, etc. Good, let's crush TikTok, right? A platform for very few intelligent people, to put it in that way, but that is, again, actively comforting that kind of, this thing takes too much commitment to watch, it's too long, I don't have time. Well, of course, how do you think to even attend a university class, right? If you think that something longer than 15-20 minutes is so difficult, like kids normally have, like when they're 14-15, like an attention span of 20 minutes. I give that videos sometimes, but an adult, I think, should have a long enough time span, even if we are behind like the screen at home or lazing off somewhere, so that nobody's really evaluating us for this. But really, YouTube is paradoxically too intelligent for the next type of person, of average person, that we're going to have. We already have it right at this point. So this seems terrifying, because even videos like mine that, in spite of all the technical limits, still do tell something about history, will probably be obsolete, not because there will be anything better than them at this point. By the way, artificial intelligence, which is not intelligence, so in this sense it's not even artificial, it's nothing really, will never be able to challenge actual historical knowledge and inquiry. Because if in my articles I'm discovering something and this thing, I'm the only person who actually knows this, it may be normally, yes, a smaller thing to know, but say the historical criticism regarding such enormous quantity of data is impossible to attain, right? If that were the case, we would live in a completely different world, and now this kind of say technology, even though in its infancy, is not going to take the path, because it's just basically a dumb calculator, right? But a much dumber one, at least for the purposes that people think it is going to be used to great distress, that this thing is going to replace art. How do you even... Let's skip this aspect, but this is the point, right, of the spread of superstitious fear for something that you should simply be able to step over without any problem. But aside from this, the point is that Schwerpunkt, albeit growing at an ever higher rate, and consistently so according to my projections, because this is exactly what I was planning, or a sort of saturation for which you cannot avoid videos to people to actually, videos being watched and people to actually subscribe, right? Just the more here there is evidently an acceleration that is going to gain steam. Let's see what happens in the next month, right? It's not going to be clamorous, but I think that if I continue with this rhythm, at least the 10,000 threshold will be broken relatively soon. From there, the channel will be ever larger, and people will, just by the same rate they do now, but of course being more, will keep expanding this, right? So I think that this channel is finally doing what it was designed to do, with all the safety measures, and it's ready for an expansion. What I tell you, however, is that, of course, this is still a modest, very modest growth, to say the least, but that you can accelerate this brutally if you're actually committed to the cause. Right, I have the impression, I've seen some comments, people saying, let's not make other people know that Schwerpunkt is out there, because why, right? What are you going to do? You think that what I say is something you can treasure somewhere and spending somewhere else, as if there wasn't enough historical information readily available aside from me here. Of course, if you care about the channel, and if you care about especially the message that it delivers, you should make it grow. Of course, it's going to favor me, but it's enabling me to not just consolidating, of course, the conviction that I should remain here, that I already have, but that still, again, you may never know what happens. It's not a threat or blackmail. It's just saying, there are pretty heavy things that may happen even just to me that would make me surely with sadness consider whether I should stay here or not. But say if I of course make, for example, a full living out of this, or I especially get connected with other figures in or outside of YouTube, and we can bring this to a level that, as you know, is very political at the end of the day. I basically make the both essentially pagan and Christian imperial Catholic tradition on this video. So this is what I specifically teach, right? So there is a powerful intent behind this that is, of course, world domination, that I'm not kidding about it, right? It's not that I think myself at some point ruling the world, but what would you do? Like, what aim would you have otherwise, like in your life? Why putting limits to, if this mean can keep on expanding? And I think that this channel's potential, in fact, as we were saying in the beginning, has still not properly been seen. People have literally not realized what is out there, right? To see yet, and I see with the ease with which people get ensnared by incredibly shallower channels, together with others that I esteem, but I can easily say, well, this thing may not be the actual deal, for example, from a military point of view, or even just historical critique of this has many faults. I mean, I have at least some capacity to bring this project to a level that probably no one has ever seen. right? Because I don't do it for the actual money, or I don't do it for the notoriety to the end of itself. I do it because I'm thoroughly convinced that there can be a work of reconquest of some sort that has to do with the one and with the entire ecumenic project that should be made. I understand that there are people here that follow me for other reasons and maybe disagree with me and sometimes do not know what the hell I'm talking about. It's all legitimate in many ways. But I feel also I need to give an explanation for what I'm doing. Right? For example, last autumn I made that video about a guide to Schwerpunkt's content, because I realized I had almost doubled my number of subscribers from the last updates, and I wanted legitimately, like, the new person arrives here to know what I'm on, right? Which is not drugs, right? At least not conventional. Let's put it in this way. And I understand that it's sort of precautional safety, of course. Like the idea is, who's this guy? Is he an alt-righter? Is a far-right, white supremacist, extremist? Is he just a liberal or whatever? It's not immediately evident what that is, right? And I believe me, it doesn't take me much to fool people sometimes, even on purpose. Like, I don't never do explicitly say that I'm something that I'm not. Actually, most of you understand perfectly where I stand, but it requires a discipline that is not so easy to attain in the first place, and the videos are all one with the thing. So I do perfectly understand that it's not immediately evident why even a person should follow me, should subscribe, should support me in any way. You don't support me, you support something beyond. Right, I'm just a medium, and we all know what I'm talking about. At least if you are here from quite a while, right? So I do believe that Schwerpunkt everything in the plan is falling accordingly in place, right? So it's extraordinary. I thought this 5 years ago, and exactly what I thought would happen is happening, which is extraordinary, telling the truth. 5 years ago, of course, it was different, but just because I think I'm a better person now, I'm really confident about what I've been doing and what I've been developing throughout these years. So I don't see also why I shouldn't tell you about the whole thing. So we are living also in quite interesting times, as the Chinese proverb, almost euphemistically says. But this is exactly right. This is one of the times in history in which, from a critical context, like the best things may emerge, and who knows that Schwerpunkt won't have a role in some important degree in the future, right? I honestly, I tell myself every day, given the current rate of growth, that I will never make it probably even to reach more than I don't see myself, like, if I had to bet, right, it's not what I want, right, but the millions of subscribers I don't think I will ever reach, right? The hundreds of thousands, it's difficult. The tens of thousands I'm about to, so it's not really difficult to predict. Even if I died now, probably the channel would accumulate 10,000 subscribers. But at least, but of course there are also much larger dimensions involved within this scale. So the point, believe it, for me every day making this videos is also this, right? This thing must, it is a struggle, right? And given that we do believe in the doctrine of struggle and victory, we have a task to accomplish here, which we can do together, right? So my advice is always watch the other stuff I've done, right? If you have doubts about me, and if you want to feel like you want to trust me to go on following it because you see that there is something good in it, but you're not entirely sure about what the whole thing is, go watch my previous videos. Like, look even in the even the time. Again, there are things that I believed, I don't know, 3 years ago that today I see in a different way. So, but even watching like that, where I come from with that, right, and how the thing transformed and why. As you know, I don't talk much about myself at all, but I was vocal about at least certain what generically occurred at different times throughout these years that were some of the most important in my life, and therefore this can make you at least see that, according to me, I've always been sincere about what I'm doing. Like, I've never tried to fool people. This is not one of those channels that tries just to fish, say, indoctrinated people or someone. Like, I'm actually pretty critical even of the same groups that I consider myself part of, in a loser sense. But again, everything is out here, right? And YouTube sometimes doesn't show it to you. I have made some experiments. I remember last year I was searching some videos I made, like the perfect title, that was quite specific. And surprise, surprise, if I actually press insert in YouTube search, the video does not appear. I mean, there is. If I actually check on the link from the video where I can find it within my content, whatever, and I see it's online, I see people can see it, but in the search engine it will not show up. And on the contrary, other stuff will show up that is at a point not even connected, but YouTube thinks to be, that is part of that kind of average idiot kind of view of what the world should be, not just history, and that basically gets ahead and is propinated to you because they think that you're stupid, and that's what they really think by making run in this thing, right? I don't make these videos because I think that you're stupid. I don't, because otherwise I wouldn't make videos at all. And not just I don't think that you're stupid, but I also think that you all have the potential to excel. Doesn't matter what's your background, how old you are, I don't care. Just, I will never fool you with the idea that there is a shortcut for doing that. And most of what you will see on YouTube, or anywhere for that matter nowadays, it's making you feel good with what you are, and not the much better person you could be, having more, if you're even earning more in a broader sense, just in material sense. Well, that's how I address you, right? And again, even when I see that sometimes the things I say are relatively difficult, because I do believe that the silent majority is much more educated than normally the average comment, like the average remark that I get. I make something that may appear more difficult exactly because I know that you can get it, right? And excuse me if I put this extra, difficulty with my poor English, or say the rants, the various, the messed up, line whenever I start those 2 hours and a half long videos, etc. But I truly believe that even if that was the only thing, you can absolutely make it true, right? And that is what I want this channel to be for everybody involved. I can assure you that I've grown, right? That I don't have any problem assessing that certain things I said in a certain way I used to, etc., are now I would correct myself about, and that, however, I've remained more or less with the same base. I just built on them further, so it's a different thing for that matter. But that this whole stuff, the medieval, the ancient, the von Clausewitz, the von Krieger series, the Historian, the early modern warfare, traditional religion, the PhD tales, all that stuff. They are all part of a bigger thing that is actually really designed as a wall since the beginning, and it has, of course, a symbolic relevance. I mean, there's literally there a meaning encoded that is the reason why I talk every day at this point. So I care really about you knowing this, that I'm not treating you like a cow to milk. I don't do this again. You see, I don't use sponsors. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm not here for the money, right? If I make them, I'm happy, but it's not the part. Like I'm not waiting here to grow to make an average salary with it. I'm doing it because at that point it would be so fun to just handle the entire thing and to reach and to provoke, to engage also with other. Like if you like, I don't know, even if there is a video that you'd like me to criticize, let's start from this stuff, because it also begins like that. I mean, of course, this depends on you. It will be like a divertissement rather than like a solidly built reason for which I would choose, but it would still pass, in fact, under my my judgment. As everything that happens in here, always remember that I'm in charge. So I command and am responsible for everything at the same time, as it should always be. So any grievance, any problem, any criticism is always welcome, right? Just make it pertinent. Just know, again, that I've made tons of stuff, so if you are specifically referring to one topic, just make sure that you haven't missed at least the video in which by title, so that you can search through it explicitly, I already discussed, because again, it also happens, and very often, that's the point, right? I often get criticized for things I don't say, for example. That often happens. Like I get criticized a few overall, but within that, right, I realize that I say A in a video, and the person sometimes understands B, and another C. And this is very strange, because very often this position are also literally the opposite of what I'm saying, and I said over and over again on Schwerpunkt. So it's all almost comical to address sometimes, and I just skip it because I don't think it's worth mine or your time, for that matter. You put yourself into it. That is not on me objectively, if not any possible mistake I can make, of course, and again, the problems of communication that may arise from my way of expression, but also your understanding, bear it in mind. Now, this million views are like probably the best indicator of the general potential that the internet provides you with in terms of sharing knowledge. Right, so this channel is very often bulletproof, also in terms of whether a person that bullet was somebody's understanding, to the degree that it's difficult to expose my content and getting affiliates. Right, arguably, as I said before, from the analytics doesn't quite happen. People, it turns out that when they finally come across my channel, they often my content, they often engage with it, and they're here, and if they stick around here, they do for good, right? So with a much higher average than YouTube. So there is actually a great potential here if the thing is simply shared and understood in a broader sense, and it can be fully appreciated, also from the side of those who are already familiar with it, by being shared, right? By being crowned, but by the spirit that it is just awaiting to expand further from it, right? And I often get people telling me, look, I began to study history thanks to Schwerpunkt. began to study that at university or something. That is a lot, right? That means a lot because I don't know what, maybe that's a death sentence for some odd reason, but at least I'm not entirely responsible for it. But the point being that if the end is, of course, to spur people to know more, right, to expand their knowledge, to have a clearer vision of history of the world, and being filled with that confidence that is needed civilizationally to just take over the world. But that's the actual point why I'm here, right? So these million views surely made a difference in the world, right? If I had kept all my videos for me, you can say that the world would have been a bit different from the one it is now, and we would all probably be very much surprised by how very influential our single existence really is on a regular basis, right? For us to see, like, go back and change your own life without too many things, without cheating, like knowing what happens in the future. And probably you couldn't even exactly because of this reason, that is to say, you probably have caused much more important things to change than you imagine. And everything gets molded like this, right? So, yeah, I can say thank you. I will do something more robust for the 10,000 subscribers. It's, again, an interesting base to move further from, which I count to get to, or the channel to get to anyway. And I will surely expand on this kind of also explanatory views, because one thing, for example, I'm anxious to discuss is seeing how historical interest changed from YouTube in this 5 years, how much people's ideas began to change, to shift, which is dramatically disturbing to the degree, because unfortunately they changed for the worse from pretty much every side that you can look. And at the same time, this is always an opportunity for making a change in the other direction by making leverage on other aspects that are not really seen. So this is also what I'm trying to do, and what I think Schwerpunkt has the potential of accomplishing. And especially in the last times, again, this sense of criticism towards even the way history is made on YouTube, the way that the superficiality, the simplicism with which certain general historical notions are just touched on, and just to very often just make a very simple point by showing two sides from one side or another, and so the other person says, oh my god, that's from my side, but then not really explaining much further, and so really not giving that great solidity to that side. And you know what I think about this, traditionally speaking, that if you're defeated, basically it's your fault, right? There's no way around that. Like, the fact that somebody else has caused you a damage still doesn't account for what have you done to prevent it before that, or to succumb, right? Because you could also win at some point, right? So this is valid for everyone at every time. Instead, the general superstition today is that there is the right and the wrong side that must win or lose without any actual effort from the side, of course, your side that is obviously always the good one, starting from you. Exactly. And even as a human, of course, I measure, you never know whether I'm a human or not, but let's say I measure my own limits, because I could do so much more about the things I actually care about, but it is always a challenge. So Schwerpunkt is, in that sense, the challenge of making the damn thing, as opposed to just circling around it and finding excuses not to. And that's the reason why I'm continuing to do so. And that's how I normally cope with life. I just go on and I say, well, okay, well, I want to do this. If I don't, I will maybe even crash myself, destroy myself in the enterprise, but that's what I wanted at least. And so this is not literally, obviously there is a decision making, there is a sort of monitoring of the situation. Actually, it's a pretty sophisticated one. Remember when I was in high school, I every time I had an examination, I prepared myself as if I were training an army, thinking what kind of performance it would have on the field, all this kind of stuff. And there were all some indicators that actually corresponded to what was going on there with the with the teacher, with the subject's information. Fascinating, right? And I use this still to some degree, at least not quite in the same way, but judgment is also a matter of awareness of some things that you can't quite explain just all the time. So whenever I make this type of videos like today's, at least I lay a bit out how it works inwardly, which is obviously not possible to just explain it directly, but I try at least. So again, I thank you enormously for this milestone. I feel it to be surely an important result, and I owe it to my work, but to you at the same time. And that's the same thing to me. I mean, I cannot distinguish them. If I fail, it's because I wasn't able to make the thing work for you to get, right? So that's always how I see it. I cannot complain with some people I don't even know in person, and I'm a very judgmental person, as you know, I'm incredibly critical and owe it to some degree. But I realized that also that I should be much more concerned about my own faults, because they are my own, the ones from which I'm truly responsible always, even when it is paying the consequence for something else occurring outside of me. Because the ultimate, where's the limit? Where do you draw the boundary? Right? You could always intervene. You could always do something, and therefore, this is the reason why I'm glad and I thank you for it, because it means that we did enter in this kind of syntony, even though we do not know each other well. Let's put it in this way: we are still. This is not about. It's not a friendship. Like again, we don't know each other. I don't aim at that specifically. At some point, I will probably also reveal my identity, anything you're interested in, but it's not going to be soon, let me tell you. And it's not about that either, right? But I do understand that sometimes having this voice every day is in part that what we're looking towards. Like it's surpassing our limits, is bounding with that kind of humanity that you can rely on. And if I am here to do what I do, I will prove that this can be done, and that if somebody really believes in themselves, I guess everything is possible. And I do truly believe that this is true, and this is valid for everyone, right? Getting it right is another kettle of fish, but without trying, you can't get anywhere in the first place. So that's really the single most important thing, and that's why I'm doing this. So I will probably leave you with something. Probably will record another video now, a question and answer one, a simple one. You should finish in relatively short time. You will probably see either this before or the other, I don't know. Anyway, for today, also thank you as always for listening to me. Thank you for the 1 million views, and I really wish you a great time, and see you next time. Bye.